Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Learn Python by Building an App, Part 2. I am Bhavani Ravi, teaching you Python in the non syntactic way by building this beautiful app called Book Sharing App. So, last time when we saw, we went through a bunch of Pythonic structures like lists, functions, function calls, different types of variables, and all that. And we went through three basic features like listing your book, adding new books, and removing book from the list. Now, there are a bunch of problems with this, and you can, with respect to any application, the number of features that you can incorporate are enormous. The world is your oyster, so why stop where we stopped last time? So there are a bunch of problems with our current implementation. One, if you look at it, we only have book names here. Obviously, if you are a book junkie like me, you would obviously want to keep track of number of pages the book has, who the author is, and whether you have read it or not, all these kind of information. So for that, looks like list alone can't help. And the next problem with that is here, when you look at this, we've added three more books, but every time you start the application brand new, we tend to stick with the first three books we started with. No matter you add 3 or 100 books, the first three book is going to remain. So for that, we need something that persists this in your memory, in your storage, and then retrieves it back. So let's tackle this problem one after the other. So our first problem is, it only has book names. So for us to do this, there are a couple of so in this video we are going to focus on problem number one, where uh, working with more information. And there are a couple of ways to do it, and we'll go through all these ways and see what the pros and cons are. So the first way to tackle this is using list of lists. Second way to tackle this is using a list of dictionaries. The third way to tackle this is dict of dict. So let's quickly go through how the data looks like, right? So I'm going to copy this, put it here. So the only thing that's going to change mostly is the way we are organizing the data. So, okay, let this be there. And let me start afresh. Okay. So when it comes to list of lists, what we are planning to do is every book and its associated detail will be a list, and all the books will form another list. So to get a better gist of it, I'll just type it out for you. Right? And each of those items in the list will be a list itself. For example, here Atomic Habits, and the author is James Clear. And let's say the book has 200 pages. So that is one list, and it is surrounded by another list. Similarly, let's do for Life is What You Make It, Preeti Shenoy, and let's say it has 150 pages. Since pages are integers, I am going to remove the string constructs around it. That makes more sense. And Power of Habits, I'm not sure who the author is, so I'm just going to make it empty. And let's say it has about 320 pages. Sounds about right. So this is what we call as list of list construct, right? And if you have to list these books, list books one, let me do that. And for us to list this, right, if you look at this, for book detail in my books, if I just print this, it will print the list inside that particular list. So it will print these. So let's comment this and let's call this list book one function, and we'll see what it prints. Okay, Python after py. Okay, something is wrong with this. What's wrong? Invalid syntax. Basically, I have missed something. Okay, here there is no comma or the bracket, so that should work, right? So now if you look at it, what it does is it goes through my books and prints each one out. And for us to actually get the book detail, we have to, you know, print each one of those book detail. Book name equal to book detail of 0. Similarly, author is equal to book detail of 1. Because it's a list, we are using the index to access it, right? And book author pages is equal to of 2. So if you see, it prints out book name, book author, pages, book name, book author, pages, and there's no book author here, so it prints out for all the book. And we can go a bit further, and let's just say I equal to 1. That's the book number 1, and you can have print of book ID plus comma I. Okay, let me just, okay, so we have a book ID, and before printing any book, just leave like a couple of blank lines so that we can segregate it. Okay, that didn't work because it didn't save. Okay, yeah, so now we have book. Okay, we have to also increment, right? I plus equal to 1. Wait, now we have book ID and then book details. So let's print this out. So looks good. So book number 1, book number 2, book number 3, all is well. Now if you want to add books to it, right, all you have to do is you have to get 3 things now. Instead of 1 thing, you need to get, book name, book author, which can be an empty string, and pages, which can also be none. Okay, you can enter just with the book name, or just we need book name is mandatory, book author and pages are not. So the moment we get that, what we're going to do is we are going to append it to make a list and append it to the existing my books. So to make list, because just going to make a list, book name comma book author comma pages. Now let's try and add a new book, right? I'll get secret wish list because I know the author name. Okay, still something's wrong here. Okay, add book 1. So this is my new book, and when I call add book 1, the book name is going to be secret wish list comma book author is going to be Preeti Shenoy, and pages I'll say 130, and that should work. Now if I say list books, I should have 3 plus 1, 4 books. So that's the idea. Let me save the file and then run it. So if you look at it, the new book has been added. So this is the first method, lists of list method. So basically the data is stored as lists and nothing else. So every index will have a particular data. Now the problem here is when you look at this particular lines here, we are going and addressing each data by its index. So if you take and look at this code like 10 days back or 20 days back, Without this print statement, it would not make any sense. Just looking at book details of 0 will not give us any idea whether it's a name or an author. And also imagine if you have 100 more details here, then you have to memorize all these indexes, right? So that becomes a bit of a problem. So there is a little more neat way to actually do this. So that is our second method called list of dictionaries. So dictionaries in Python are single data units. So let's take a single book here, right? Let's take a single book, and a dictionary equivalent of book as list would look like a single book as a list would look like this, whereas a single book as dict would look something like this, more readable. So book name, book name, author, and then pages, 200, James Clear, and then Atomic Habits. So these both are exactly the same, except this comes with a key instead of an index. So let's go ahead and have a list of these dictionaries, right? So that we'll have a better understanding of these. So that's our book number 1, book number 2, and book number 3, right? This is going to be life is what you make it, and Preeti Shenoy, Preeti Shenoy, and then 150 pages maybe. Let this be Loan Shots, and I don't know the author again. So that looks like a book as dictionary. Now if you have to write another list book method, then what would you do is, instead of mentioning the indexes, instead of my books, we would go through book as dict, and for each book detail what we would do is we will look up using the keys. So these are what we call as keys, and these are what we call as values, and look up each book detail with that key. So author and then pages. So even if you look at this code like 50 days back, you would probably be like, okay, this is what the data I'm dealing with, right? You will have an idea. So that is done. I am going to comment this out so that we can call our new functions. Okay. Let me call list books. This should be list books 2, because we already have one list book, another list book, and list books 2. Okay. Something is wrong. Cannot multiply list books 2 star. Okay, something is saved. Oh, this is not star. This should be B. Line number 106. I've saved the file. Okay, that worked. So here we have again Atomic Habits, book number 1, Preeti Shenoy, and then Loon Shots. This is what we call list of dictionaries method. Now there is another problem which is common in both the first method and the second method. Now imagine if you want to remove the book Atomic Habit, or let's say Loon Shot, from the list, right? What would we do? Initially what we did for list books is very simple. You have to just change a bunch of lines and it would work nice. When it comes to remove book, previously what we did was, since it was all names, we just passed a book name and then we got the index and then deleted the book. But In both method number 1 and method number 2, list of lists and list of dictionaries, it gets a bit more complicated. So I'll still pass book name alone, and I would have to loop through this particular list, and then I have to check if book detail of book name is equal to my new book. If yes, I have to preserve the index, right? So for me to get the index, there is a method called enumerate, which will give me the index and the value, right? Index and the value, and I will preserve book index equal to none for now, and once I find the book, I will use that book index, the current index to that, and then break out of the loop. Once I break out of the loop, I would remove that from book as dict dot remove of book index. So it gets a bit more complicated here. Remove books of 2 looks like this. This is a list of dict, and enumerate will give you the index of the item and the item itself, and once you run this, you will remove it. So let's try remove book of loon shots. Loon shots, and then we'll list the book. We'll remove the book and then we'll list the book, and remove book should be remove book 2. Loon shots is not in the list. That's even better. Okay, this is not calling my function. Something is not right. Okay, we are trying to remove something which is not there in the list. That's what this is saying. It needs a bit of debugging. So let's see what's happening here. It is actually remove book of 2 and then dot remove book index, where x is not in the list. Let's see what that x is. So it already has loon shots. We'll make that sure. Book name is equal to our book, which is loon shots. That is also right. So let's print the book index and see what's coming up. Also, there's extra print statement somewhere here, and I'm going to remove that. Okay, all looks good. So it says index is 2. 0, 1, 2 should be removed. Book as dict dot remove of index 2. Okay, we can do this as well. We can just remove it and then put index of, and then we'll just break it. Okay, line number 112. Something is missing. Okay, we don't need this also now. Book and book name and interesting. 0, 1 and 2. This is really interesting too. So print of book, let's do that. Okay, something is wrong now. let's copy this loan shots and then paste it here. Okay, these both has to be the same, and let's print book comma book detail of name, so that will give us something. So these are just debugging methodologies. So if you look at it, it both has the same thing. List.remove is not working for some reason, I'm not sure why. Okay, makes sense. We have to remove the index, and this particular x is okay. So we have to remove it with respect to the index and not the value. Here what it's trying to do is it's trying to remove that index. It's looking for number 2 and trying to remove that. So for us to delete it by index, what we have to do is delete and book as dict of that index. So that should work. Right? Previously what we are trying to do is we are trying to find a value in the list and deleting it. That's what we did in the previous implementation. Now there we go. So that loan shots book has been removed and then the rest of the book has been displayed. So this is your second method. And if you look at it, if you have 100 books and if you want to just remove one book, you have to go through the 100 books and then delete it. So that is the only disadvantage in both the methods. It's kind of heavy. So for us to go through the next step, for us to have a better implementation at it, we can go through the next data structure called dict as dict. Okay, so in this what we're going to do is we're going to have a key which is used very often as a dictionary itself. So this is like multi-level dictionary. Instead of list, we are going to have a dictionary, and each item in a dictionary will have a key associated with it, which is the book name itself, Atomic Habits, right? And then life is what you make it. Then loon shots. This implementation is not of a big help when it comes to, so if you look at it, we have key as the book name itself and then the value with a bunch of details. So this is the new data structure. This is not a very big help when it comes to listing. It's pretty much going to be the same, except you have to handle the extra keys. Okay, so here when you talk about iterating through a dictionary, you will have something called as key comma value, and to iterate through it, you will have items. So once you have the items, you have key, which is actually the book name, and this is your book details. So that's pretty much the change we need to do. Book detail. Okay, so nothing else changes here. That is your list books 3. But when it comes to removing the book, the things get really easy. So all you have to do is get a book name and then single line delete. What did we call this? Book as dict, right? Again, okay, book as dict of book. That's it. So what it does is it pretty much queries this from book as dict and deletes that item from the dictionary. So let's go ahead and try this. Again, we are going to copy these two. We're going to remove loon shots and then print the rest of the book. So this is 3 and this is 3 again. Okay, interesting. String indices must be integers. Book detail is supposed to be unused. Okay, good. Book detail is dict, which is also good. Book detail of book name. Okay, Let's print book detail and see what's there. There we go. So apparently something was not saved, that's all. So it worked pretty much the same, but the only thing is we don't have to go through the whole struggle of iterating through the list and finding out where the value is and then deleting it. So this pretty much works. So in this tutorial, we have gone through deep dived into understanding lists, list of lists, list of dictionaries, dictionary of dictionaries. We spent a lot of time on this because it's very important. You are going to use this in and out every day in your programming. Knowing list and dictionary back of your hand is very important. Take any random use case right from grocery list to to-do list and play around with these data structures. It is really fun, and in the future videos we will solve the second problem of having it all in the memory. Until then, do a lot of practice, learn a lot of things, have fun, see you, bye bye. Signing off, Bhavani Ravi.